Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of The Law and You. I am your host here, yours truly, Shellon Washington, and it's a pleasure to be here discussing with you, enlightening you, and helping to, teach you to understand the laws in the country in which you live, or more specifically, the state in which you live. And I hope to be enlightening some of you this afternoon as it relates to property damages. Today, we're going to be discussing property damages for those of you who have real estate in the state of New York, and some of you might have real estate in the state of New Jersey, and some of you also do have real estate in my home country, Guyana. Welcome, welcome to those of you who are now joining me to today's edition of The Law and You. As I said before, we're going to be discussing property damages in the state of New York and also in Guyana. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, damage to property could occur from construction, and that's the type of property damages I'm speaking about. I'm not speaking about damages by fire or some act of God. This afternoon, I'll focus on damage to your property based on construction. Recently, there's been an uprising in the number of construction that is taking place in the state of New York. More specifically in Brooklyn, you would notice that there are a lot of new buildings going up. There's a lot of multi levels, like skyscraper, tall buildings, most likely apartment buildings that are being put up in Brooklyn. They're replacing a lot of the old buildings. A lot of people are losing their houses, and those investors are purchasing the houses, and in some cases they're combining two or three buildings together to put up a high-rise building. And once that is done, very often people's property is damaged during construction. There's a lot of vibration from the excavation work that they tend to do. And during the construction time, sometimes there could be vibration, they could be digging, there could be damages on the side of your property because they're digging down into the earth, a significant part down. And that often causes damage to homeowners. And you can see people who live in Brooklyn, there's a gentrification is taking place in that area. A lot of people, as soon as they are unable to pay the mortgage, what the banks do, the banks stepping very quickly. They don't give you the opportunity to redeem your property. And this has been a growing problem, mind you, in the state of New York, where people are losing their property very stupid to the banks, because if they miss a payment, they miss two payments. What the bank does, the bank swoops right in, and they're not waiting anymore. At some point during other administrations, you could have seen that there was a significant delay in foreclosures, but now there's not much delays. As soon as you miss a few payments, you get into 6 months, a year, and they're hurrying to the courts to foreclose on you. And as you know, the courts are not offering much protection to people from foreclosure. So what end up happening is those banks tend to file foreclosures against people, and they tend to move in and try to get the property. Once they get those property, investors oftentimes purchase those properties, and then they start erecting a lot of these high-rise apartment buildings that you're seeing now. I think in the next 5 years or so, a lot of people are going to lose their 1 and 2 family homes, and it's going to be turned into high-rise buildings. And a lot of people have been harassed. A lot of homeowners in Brooklyn are being harassed to give up possession of their homes, because these investors are very aggressive in their plight to get those properties from homeowners. So you have to be very careful now. So when these people are putting up these high-rise buildings, they oftentimes try to get you to either sell your property to them, and if you refuse, what they're going to do is get a licensing agreement and tell you, if you enter into this agreement with them, if there's damage to your home, they're going to repair that home. You got to be careful with those licensing agreements. You got to make sure you go through it on your own, or you hire an attorney. If you don't know what to look for, hire an attorney to go through the licensing agreement. Because if you sign those license agreement and there's terms, provisions in there you're not familiar with because you yourself didn't read it, you didn't create it, and all you know is that you're getting paid. Mind you, you're supposed to get paid on all of those licensing agreement. If you agree to allow anybody to do construction next to your property and they're asking that safety equipment be put on your property or anything be attached to your roof or any part of your property, you're entitled to compensation. So oftentimes the licensing agreement spells out all of the terms that you need to know between you and the person who's the developer or the construction company, whoever it is, the investor who's doing work on the property next door or adjacent to yours. So you got to be familiar with that agreement. If you're not familiar with that agreement, that's going to be a problem. Because if any damage results to your property and you don't know how to get the damages repaired, that is a major problem. And I've seen this so many times. Investors go and they put up property next door to homeowners. Then they the vibration cause cracks in the structure, cracks in the property. And then those investors refuses to fix the home. And guess what? The court system is not offering the level of protection you think that they would be offering. You think it would be very easy that the courts would tell them, listen, you have to fix the homeowner's property, restore it into the right order. But you have some entities sitting in these courts in New York that are not concerned about the average person. They're not concerned about you. They're not looking after your interests. They sit there in the courts to just oppress people. So you have to be careful with these investors coming next to your property and doing construction work. You want to preserve your property. And the only way to preserve your property is this first time you see that there's a crack or there's something that is happening, the place is vibrating and damages is likely to occur to your property, rush to the court. Get an injunction, get them stopped, stop them from continuing any construction work unless there is a policy. They have to implement a policy, an insurance policy, and you have to be the beneficiary that if something happens to your property must be fixed from that policy. If there's not adequate insurance policy in place, do not permit them. Get that injunction, stop them from erecting structures next to your home, stop them from putting these high-rise buildings next to your home and imperiling you or damaging your property, because it takes such a long time in the court system to get your property restored to its original condition. And so that you know, guys, anybody that intend to do construction next to your home, they must come to you first and inform you. You must be made aware of it. If you're not if they don't make you aware and send you notice as to who owned the property and all this thing, you could call the DOB. And if during the construction you feel vibrations or anything else happening to your property, call the Department of Buildings. Again, good afternoon. Good afternoon, Izzy, Barbara, Casey. Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon to all of you who are watching here this afternoon with me. This is The Law and You. I am your host, yours truly, Shellon Washington. And I am here to enlighten you on legal issues that might affect you from time to time. And today's program is mostly beneficial for those of you who might own a property or you know somebody who owns a property and you live in the state of New York, or even if you live in the state of New Jersey, the same principle applies. As it relates to Guyana, other factors would factor in, obviously, and play a very important part of how you get damages for your neighbor damaging your property. In the United States, it's a tort against property. So you can sue the tortfeasor. Either if you have a licensing agreement, it's going to be a breach of contract. If you do not have a licensing agreement, but your property was damaged, you'll still sue the tortfeasor for damage to your property. And you will recover, because most of the construction companies, they're required by law to maintain insurance policies once they're doing in any type of construction in the city of New York or in any part in the state of New York. They're required to maintain that policy. And if any damage occur, then you're entitled to claim against that policy, or you could just sue on a breach of contract, and the insurance policy will then step into the place of the tortfeasor and reimburse you for any damages. And in many instances, you can claim against your own homeowner's policy. Your homeowner's policy is there for that purpose. So if you need to go and file a claim against your policy, most often your policy does not cover the full extent of the damages, but they'll cover it significantly, and that will give you a little break in terms of what you will get back from anything that happens to your property. So bear that in mind. As soon as you see that the damages is happening, do not wait. Do not wait. Just go to the court, get yourself an attorney. An attorney would know to file an injunction to stop the construction. And then the court will ensure that you are adequately protected so that the construction might be able to resume. But if they do choose to resume the construction, your property has to be protected. They have to put safety measures in place that if damages continues to occur, that they'll repair it back to their property's original conditions. Just bear in mind also, like I said, those courts, a lot of the judges are not there for you. A lot of them are placed there to protect the interests of those very investors that you will be going up against. So the best thing to do, if you see construction starting against your property, take pictures of your property. Always make sure you maintain pictures of what the inside of your property look like. Because, very often they try to tell you that your property was already damaged before the construction start. So one of the safest way, if they do not do what is called a pre-construction survey, the pre-construction survey, mind you, would tell these investors what your property look like before they start their construction. But very often they don't do what they're supposed to do. They just go and start because it's the cheaper way. The cheapest way is to not even pay attention to your home, not even do the pre-construction survey, but just go ahead and start construction next door right away. So you as the homeowner must know that it's important that you maintain pictures of what the inside of your property look like without damages. Take pictures of your walls, all of your walls. Take pictures of the foundation of your house. Take pictures of the foundation of your yard. Most people, the yard is concrete. So take pictures of that concrete, because a lot of times once the vibration starts, it can crack the foundation of your property. And these investors, they always choose the cheapest way out. They do not want to restore your property to its original condition. So if you want to avoid having a situation where your property is so damaged and you can't get it repaired, or it's taken a long time through the court system, you ensure that you always keep the record. So this is what my property looked like before. And then when the damages start, you also take pictures, and those pictures are timestamped. So no matter which judge you go before, you can establish your case sound that, listen, my property was not damaged. These investors came, they did not ask my permission. They didn't get a licensing agreement, and they started construction. And during that construction, it resulted in severe damages to my property. And I would like to have my property restored to its original condition. And one of the things I notice about these investors, they try, like I said earlier, they try to lowball you. Like they try to make it the cheapest way out for them. They don't want to spend the money to restore your property to its original condition. So that's why you have to be so careful when they come next door. When they come next door and they said they want to do a construction, they want to put up a high-rise building next to you, be very careful. I had a case where an elderly couple, their property was damaged severely. And they asked the investors multiple times, like, can you repair my property? Can you repair my property? The investors refused to. And then they had to find their way to me. When they got to me, I ensured that I negotiated based on there was a licensing agreement in place. I negotiated based on the licensing agreement to get them to restore the client's property. And always keep in mind that they're going to go get their contractors to do the repairs for you, and their contractors are going to give the lowest with the poorest quality material. They're going to give the lowest estimate. So always ensure that you go get your own estimate, right? If you get your own estimate, you go bring your contractor. Your contractor is going to come. He or she's going to look at your property and give you an estimate. That estimate you get from your own contractor could then be compared against the estimate from the tortfeasor's contractors. And then you could kind of like take something in the middle of the two, which will be beneficial to you. Obviously, if you can get the full amount that your contractor is asking for, then that is great. But from experience, I can tell you upfront, a lot of times these people do not want to pay what your contractors is asking for. They want to pay as little as possible because they want to damage your property and want to be able to walk away. And I can tell you, some courts would allow it. If you don't get yourself an attorney and stand up to these investors, stand up to these people who are gentrifying Brooklyn, gentrifying a lot of the parts in New York, you can be defeated. But if you get yourself a good attorney, you will not be defeated, because even if the judge is against you and the judge stands with the developers, you can get justice. Because if it has to go to the Court of Appeal, it will go there, and you will bring the judge down, and you will bring the contractors down and make them restore your property to its correct order. Okay, so one of the best ways to prevent it, though, is, like I said, if you feel vibration during the construction, during the excavation, just call 311. Go get yourself an attorney. Get an injunction to stop the constructions. When the construction is halted through the court, the next thing is they're going to have to put safety measures in place to prevent further damage to your property. If they do underpin your property in a proper manner, like get the right engineers to do the job properly, install crack monitors on your property, then you're sure that even if they're continuing to work, it will be minimal damages to your property. And that's your ultimate goal, to get minimal. Even if these people want to do construction next door, your goal is that the damage must be minimal. You don't want it to be exorbitant and then, 500,000 worth in damages, and then you have to wait for the court to drag out the entire process, and it take years for you to get compensated to restore your property in its original position. The court system is very, very slow, for those of you who are not aware. In New York, it's dragging. Ever since COVID, everything is just really, really slow. So you got to be watchful and protect your own interest. Nobody's going to protect your interest for you. You've got to be the watchdog over your property. You've got to be watchful and keep your eyes and your ears open. And anything you see happening in your neighborhood, take steps early. I see somebody asking about homeowners in Guyana whose home were bulldozed and burned down or stolen. Now, in Guyana, let me just tell you, in Guyana, they do have insurance. There are insurance companies that do insure properties in Guyana, but most people do not insure their homes in Guyana. So if you live in Guyana and your property is damaged and you have no homeowners insurance, if you know who damaged your property and the person has money, of course, you can sue the person to restore your property. For instance, if you live next to Gafoor is a big corporation, and Gafoor had a fire and the fire caught on your home caught blaze. You can sue them. Go to court to sue them. They have to rebuild your home in the same condition it was before the fire came. Now, if it's a case where it's arson and you don't know who did it, then I guess you're out of luck, because most people do not maintain those insurance policies, which you should. Because if you own a property, and especially in Guyana, most people properties built with wood, and if your wood house catch fire, you'll have to find all that money to rebuild that property. But if it's insured, then in that case, you could just file a claim with the insurance company and get them to restore your property. Now, in Guyana, if your neighbor damages your property, that's another way. You can sue your neighbor also in Guyana for damage to your property. It's a tort. So, and under the British law, it permits for tortious conduct by anybody. Any tortfeasor could be sued. An action could be maintained against a tortfeasor under British law to restore you into the position you were in before the tortfeasor caused whatever damage to your property. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to all of those joining us now. I see a few of you are joining. Good afternoon to you. And, again, this afternoon, we're speaking about damage to property, how you could prevent the damage to your property, or how you can recover damages for damage to your property. And this show is for informational purpose only. It's not intended to be exclusive legal consultation. So if you have a situation that I'm speaking about and you need consultation, you have to absolutely pick up the phone or make a visit to an attorney's office to get more information before anything else. You have to. This is not just exclusive to tell you specifically everything that you need to know, because obviously I will not have all the variables on this show. This show is very short. It's a 30-minute show, which is intended only to give you information on how you can maneuver your way around the laws, give you general guidance to things that you need to know to keep you safe, to keep you living a stress-free life. Because if things happening and you don't know, and a lot of people, sometimes they don't readily have the finances available to run to the attorney's office and say, hey, I need some legal advice. X or Y happened to me, and I need you to tell me what am I supposed to do in this situation. So this is why I come on here every Saturday or every other Saturday, depends on what is happening. I try to be here every Saturday to give you information that you might need to live above the system, to rise yourself above the matrix. Okay, guys. So if you got a house in the state of New York, like I said, these are things you need to be aware of because gentrification is taking place in that city. You're going to notice, if you haven't already noticed, a lot of high-rise buildings are coming up all over the place. Today, you're going to see 3-4 family houses on the block. Tomorrow, those houses are going to be ripped down. And then you're going to notice a high-rise building with 15, 13 floors up high, and you're going to start wondering, So if you see this happening in your neighborhood, it's happening in your street, I guarantee you, sometimes you're going to feel the vibration. And a lot of those people who are doing these developments, who are excavating and doing, a lot of them are not properly trained to ensure that the property next door or adjacent is properly underpinned, so the vibration or whatever it is they're doing would not affect their neighbors or wouldn't affect the other person's property. And they really don't care because their goal is to damage as many property as they can so that they can eventually purchase those property. I can't tell you how many elderly clients I have that's been complaining about this, how these investors are playing with them and almost forcing them to sell their property because they're turning up at these people's home like every single day. And that is a form of harassment, mind you. So people need to be aware of that. If these people are constantly bombarding you, coming to your house, make sure you get the card from them. Make sure you say, hey, what's your name? Can I have your card? And sue them for harassment because a lot of them are not going to stop until you agree to sell your home. And you have a right to be at peace with yourself on your land. You have a right to enjoy your own land that you own. So you don't need to be stressed out by no person coming constantly at your gate or at your door and knocking on your door or ringing your doorbell, asking you to sell your property. And if you know there's a specific kind of people who does that, the people in Brooklyn knows who I'm talking to about. There's a specific kind of people who comes very often and they're ringing your bell and they're asking you to sell your property. Be careful with those people because their ultimate end goal is to push you off of your land, take it over from you, and implement or build those high-rise buildings so that they can house multiple tenants at once. And you're off that land and they would be the one to inherit it. So be careful and be watchful. And don't forget, if you see anything happen in your neighborhood, any vibration, call Department of Buildings. Call, make a record of it. If you feel your house is vibrating, you there one day and you're cooking in the kitchen and you hear the house vibrating. Same thing, Miss Casey, the same thing in Manhattan, the same thing in all over there. Like if you feel any vibration, you feel it. I mean, the condominium, like Miss Casey's asking condominium apartments, that she's talking about the cost of it. But anywhere you live in the state of New York, anywhere, and you're in your home and you feel vibration from constructions, call the Department of Buildings. Or if you think it's something that is not affecting your property, but you need to protect your property, call the owner of that property, call the owner of that land, whoever they're supposed to or they're required by law to paste on the fence. The owner of the building, they're supposed to put a phone number that you should call if there's an issue, and you call that number and you let them know. I've had a situation where they did all of that. They paste the number on the building so that the homeowner should be aware of who they should call if there's damage to their property. And I had a client, he called them multiple times and they failed to respond. They would just try to elude him rather than speaking to him and try to make attempts to restore his property. He had to end up suing them. And it took a while, but they had to fix the property because the law mandates that if you commit any type of tortious act against any person, your neighbor or whoever it might be, your responsibility is to restore that person to their original condition or position that they were in. That's your responsibility. So you can't escape it as a tortfeasor. You damage somebody's property, you must fix the property back. Another thing you guys need to look out for with these high-rise buildings that they're putting up is trespass to your property. A lot of them, when they put these property up, they trespass on your property, like they will encroach because the height, sometimes it overlaps over your property. So you got to be careful and look out for that also. Look out for the trespass on your property. And if you see that, you sue them also. Don't let them get away with encroaching your property, because that's how you lose inches and inches off your property. Remember, if you're losing interest off of your property, you're losing the value. Land is valuable. So anybody that encroaches on your property, they're encroaching of your value. And then when you lose that value, it means your property is going to be sold for less. So if your property is supposed to be 50 by 100, 50 width by 100 length, and then they encroach about on, let's say about 25 feet into your property from the top, then that is still trespass. They're not supposed to have anything hanging over your property or even encroaching on the bottom part of your property. So watch out for that also, the encroachment part, because a lot of people miss that because it's up. The building is going up. So the part that is up in the air encroaches over. So a lot of people miss that. But look out for it if you see any investor come around your neighborhood, like in your and as part bought your neighbor's property, and they decided that they're going to be implementing or building a high-rise building there. Look out for all the ways that they can encroach your property or damage your property. Be watchful. If you see something encroaching, don't wait until they put up 3-4 stories up. Obviously, go get an injunction to stop them. From the first moment you see one floor looks like it's encroaching, get a survey done. Get a survey done. Go call a surveyor company and ask them to come and survey your property. And if when they survey the property, they see the neighbor's land, the investor's land is encroaching, stop it immediately. Do not wait until they completed 3-4 stories up and then say you're going to court, because at that point, obviously, you will not be able to get back the value of what you lost. They're going to pay you money, and you're going to have to be contented with monetary value for the portion of land that you would have lost. And I cannot tell you if you will be adequately compensated for anything that you're going to lose through the court. I really can't tell you, because if in the future now you decide there's a new investor that comes around and they're like, okay, we're going to buy the land from you and you're going to put high rise there, the property will not be suitable, because you're going to have this issue of where the neighbor's land is encroaching on your land, and therefore they're going to lose a portion or maybe 25 inches or whatever off of the whole entire square root of the land. So you got to be careful with that. Be watchful. All right. Guys, again, I want to thank you so much for joining this afternoon edition of The Law and You. Remember, if there is a topic, something specific that you would like to hear me talk about, even if it's a criminal law, even though I told you guys I do not do criminal law, if you have an issue with the criminal law and you would like me to discuss it, I do have a colleague who works out of our firm. He does criminal law. I can bring him on, or I can bring somebody else who is an expert in that area, and we can discuss it. I can only discuss issues that I know and I'm familiar with and I'm an expert at, and I can discuss all of those issues with you, and I will not really advise you but edify you. So if there's any specific issue that you would like information on, just send me a message on Messenger and I will see that. Remember my Facebook account, I'm on Facebook as Shellon Washington, medical malpractice attorney. You'll see me there on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. The Washington Law Firm is also on Facebook. So if you would like, you can always send me a message on Facebook, either at the Washington Law Firm, or you can send me on my personal account, which is Shellon Washington on Facebook. All right. Once again, guys, it was a pleasure being here this afternoon. I thank you so much. And I hope to see you guys again next week, where we discuss again the law and you. And like I said, any issue that you would like for us to discuss, just give me a message and we will be discussing. Thank you for joining me, and I will be here again. See you again next week. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and happy Sabbath to those of you who are celebrating the Sabbath day. Hello, this is attorney Shellon Washington, owner and founder of the Washington Law Firm located at 455 Utica Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. We're specialized in medical malpractice, personal injuries, matrimonial law, and landlord and tenant. If you're in need of legal representation, please give us a call today. The number to call is 718-877-3100. Consultation is free at no cost to you. So call us today to see if we can be of any assistance to your legal needs. Again, the phone number to call us is 718-877-3100.